This episode of Fuel for the Soul is powered by ASICS. Head over to asics.com and sign up for a one ASICS account. It's completely free, and when you sign up, you will receive 10% off your first purchase. You'll also gain access to exclusive colorways on asics.com, free standard shipping, special birthday month discounts, and more.
Hi, this is Thomas with Believe in the Run.
This is Megan with Believe in the Run.
And this is Megan with Featherstone Nutrition.
AKA Feathers.
And you're listening to Fuel for the Soul, the podcast where we chat all things hydration and nutrition and how it affects performance.
I mean, isn't it also the podcast that travels around the country to different local running retailers and talks to people about anything they want to?
Moving their bodies, primarily.
Moving and their minds.
Yes.
12 stops.
Yeah,
we just completed.
We're all done with our U.S. tour.
Tell me, how's that
stops.
feel?
Last one was Oklahoma City. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. I feel like we were done with the travel by the end.
So wait, don't you have one left?
We do.
Where's that?
Tomorrow we're leaving for Tokyo when this comes out tomorrow.
I was like, we're in the future.
We are.
Yeah, you're going to do one in Tokyo.
Yeah, so we're chatting to very, very special people.
What's amazing is both Megans learned Japanese fluently to have this conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
We sure did.
So
we sure
great.
did.
I
Googled how to say sushi in Japanese the other night because my kids wanted to know. And you know what's weird? It's sushi. So I know one word.
Engu ka wakarimasen.
Okay. We're going to answer a bunch of listener questions today, as we always do, but there's a few things we need to chat through first. I wanted to talk about our sponsor, Runway, because we've now had a chance to try salty carbs, which we've been kind of teasing for a long time, and finally now have tested a bunch. Yes. And what do you think?
I like it. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't want to bring up a competitor here, but it's like having the element mixed in with your carbs for the run, which I like both things. So I'm used to that kind of like salty mixture. And for me, it worked out really well on the run. Like it was a hot day when I took it out, and I felt, I don't know, I just had a good day. It was like one of those ones where you finish the run and your paces pick up towards the end and you have that little bit of extra. And I was like, maybe I'm hydrated. Maybe I'm carved up.
Yeah, I have been loving it. I used it on my workout this morning. I've used it for 2 or 3 of my long runs at this point. And I think we disagree on our flavor preference. I'm a raspberry lemonade.
Yeah, I like the melon.
Yeah. What are you, Megan?
I think I'm raspberry lemonade, but I do like them both. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I haven't played much with the unflavored one.
So this isn't fair. Feathers flip-flopped on this because she was a melon.
I did. I flipped the flop.
I mean, truthfully, they're all good. So that's the good news. Is I think that's also what helps is it's like a beverage that tastes good and you know that you're getting the sodium and electrolytes you need, but also I really like just having those extra carbs when maybe it's not a long enough run that you need 2 or 3 gels, but it just like helps you get through the run. And
see, I like that. I felt like I was getting extra.
And for long runs,
I was taking my gels and getting more carbs in.
Yeah, I think it works in both scenarios.
Yeah. I remember when we were talking to Runway when they were coming up with the product. I was like, I really think it needs marketed as like in addition to your gels on like a long run. But like you're saying, Meg, like when it's like an hour workout, that's where it's like I don't really need a gel, but then you're getting the carbs and the sodium. So I think that's a good way to use it if it's like a shorter workout.
Yeah.
I call it sneaky carbs.
Sneaky, salty, whatever you want to call them.
I didn't know that I was having carbs, but now I am.
You know what I learned though when this came out? People have a very differing preference of like how sweet their drinks are. I don't think I realized like how passionate some people are about like, do they like a ton of flavor and a ton of sweetness, or do they like things like really watered down? So I think like when you mix an element, are you mixing it to the label or are we mixing it to like 32 to 40 ounces? So like learning that about someone helps me recommend other products. So somebody was like, the Runway is not enough flavor. It's not sweet enough. I was like, what are you used to? And they're like, an element in 12 ounces. I'm like, that is so strong, right? So I think,
I can't do that.
Yeah, but
it's a minimum of 16 ounces for me
I
for
agree.
an element pack.
Mine's
that's
like
30. Yeah, but that's like when I said minimum, that's like a punch in the face. Right. And then I honestly, 27 ounces is a perfect amount.
It's a good way to like profile people though, as to like what their flavor preferences are. But
I like that. That should be on your Tinder profile.
Right? How do you take your drinks? But you can put a serving and a half or even up to 2 servings of the Runway if you want it stronger or you want more carbs. And then 2, that unflavored, if you're somebody who really doesn't like a whole lot of flavor or sweetness while you're out there, the unflavored is a good option too. So they've got something for everybody here, whether we like a little flavor or a lot.
Perfect. So yeah, if you guys want to try these delicious salty carbs, you can go to runway.life, that's RNWY.life, and use the code FEATHERS15 for 15% off your first purchase. Okay, before we dive into questions, Megan, talk to us about this new Ferritin study / guidelines.
So I got alerted by one of my clients who is a surgeon in the gastroenterology world. And she was like, did you see the new, like all insides, right, from mouth to butt. Yeah. She was like, did you see the new guidelines for Ferritin? And I was like, nope. So I researched them real quick. And there was this recommendation put out by the American Gastroenterological Association. So basically like the governing body, not even governing body, but like the people who kind of think about guidelines and how we practice as that certain type of doctor. And they did a bunch of research on typical ferritins of people in the United States. They broke it down by men and women, and then women as in premenopausal, postmenopausal, and looked at the incidence of having ferritin under 45. So they had a couple different groups of them. And what they were finding was they want to recommend that the new quote unquote healthy ferritin would be above 45. So at any time, if your ferritin dips below 45, they're recommending that you look into the source and the cause of why your storage form of iron is low. So they're recommending like scopes to look to see if there's, excess blood loss somewhere, which, I think is appropriate for some people, but in my experience, there's a lot of runners that might not need to jump to that intervention, just because we know that a lot of us lose more iron than we can possibly absorb just from foot strike hemolysis and some little bit of blood loss in our GI tract, just as, we damage our GI system when we're running a little bit, which fixes itself within 24 hours. And then also monthly losses for females. And then we lose iron through sweat. So it's really common for us to be low. But I think what made me the most excited about this was, how many times have we talked about, how many times have we had listeners, write in that my ferritin was 9 and my doctor told me I'm fine. My ferritin was 15 and my doctor told me I was fine. So I'm hoping that these guidelines, if they get adopted and pushed out a little more widespread, that primary care providers will be a little more educated that a ferritin under 45 actually isn't awesome for anyone. And then 2, that should open up bigger conversations and hopefully some more treatment for endurance athletes, because we just know it's so important to get that ferritin up for overall performance and recovery. So we'll see if it gets adopted. We'll see how it changes kind of the discussion on ferritin, but I'm really, really hoping that it opens a lot of different providers' eyes to 15 is not okay for anyone, let alone a runner.
Yeah.
All right, so it's 45.
Yeah, 45. We used to say 40 for women, but I think,
Where are you, Meg?
Yeah.
I just got tested. I'm 60 right now.
Whoa.
So I'm doing okay.
She's good.
I think I've gotten it up to like maybe mid 70s was like the highest I ever got it. So when I first started, it was definitely in the 20s. So we're doing good now.
Yeah, absolutely. Much better.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we dive in?
I'm diving.
Let's do it.
I don't care if it's only 3 feet.
Okay. Our first question is from Robert Stan King. He said, hey, love the podcast, longtime listener, second time quote caller. I have a question about post-race protein needs for longer distance stuff. How much should I scale up protein consumption after a 100-mile race? And for how long? I assume you would need to increase intake for more than a day. Thanks.
Forever.
Yeah, how do you
You're gonna need to eat You're going to need to eat protein for the rest of your life.
You're not wrong. That is a true answer.
I know, right? Yeah.
I love it. No, I don't think anyone has asked us this question, or at least phrased in this way. So you better believe I got a little nerdy on this one and went down the research rabbit hole, because I was like, obviously endurance exercise increases our just basal metabolic rate for a longer period than we're actually running. So it's like, you guys have probably all heard back in the 80s, that post-exercise burn, right? Like there really is some truth to that. So I was trying to pull some studies, and I found a lot more that were based on metabolic rate and energy needs, so like overall calorie needs versus the protein. But then I did stumble on a little bit of that. So I thought we'd open up the conversation a little bit more to, first of all, he's talking about a 100-miler, but I know a lot of us are quote unquote only running 26.2 or less. So I think it's interesting to kind of look at both of those as well. So there was some research done, and of course it's a small sample size because there aren't that many people to study running 100-mile races, but it was a really interesting one. They followed 10 runners from Western states, 100-miler, and they found that they burned an average of 16,130 calories over the 100 miles. And it took them 26.8 hours and roughly lost 500 ounces of fluid. So to put it into context, right? Obviously, when we're finishing something like a 100-mile race, we are, undernourished. There's no way we can eat 16,000 calories, while we're out there. So we have to recoup from that and then also rehydrate from that. So that's one thing to account for. But then it also found that their metabolic rate, so like the energy we burn at rest, which could be anywhere from 1,200 to 2,000 calories, kind of depending on our size and our age, was triple for 24 hours after this 100-mile race. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm always like really hungry after a marathon for like a few days, even though I'm super sedentary. Yeah. So, I always tell people to eat to hunger. We've talked about that on here, but it was just kind of crazy to see that it was triple our energy needs for 24 hours after a big race like that. So I think that's just another good message, whether we're running 100 miles or a marathon or a half marathon, right? We do need more energy. I think I see people often like, I'm not running, I don't need to eat as much today. But to really recover from some of those efforts, I think it's important to make sure we understand we're not only recovering from the deficit we got into during the race, but also that increased metabolic rate there for at least 24 hours later. So I think energy is also an important discussion here, obviously, but then looking at protein needs. So we know when we're breaking down that muscle mass, we need extra protein to break it back up. And that's also kind of a prolonged process after the race as well. And this was showing that we needed significantly more protein as well. So again, Thomas Dismay, we're going to talk about grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But most of the time we say like 1.7 to 1.8 grams per kilogram of protein per body weight. And this was saying we need like 2 to 2.5. So significantly more protein for at least 3 days after the race, maybe even longer, just depending on the duration. So I do think this was a good question from Stan here. That our energy needs are going to be grossly increased after a 100-miler, and then also those protein needs for days, after that. So I think it's really important that we put some emphasis on that recovery period, which we don't always talk about.
Yeah, I mean, after 100 miles, I imagine you're just going to be hungry for days. Like I did a long run workout, which I haven't done in quite a while. I think it was last weekend, and was not hungry after, not even like in the evening of that same day, but the next day I was like ravenous, just wanted food. But I guess this explains why.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And two, when you get in that deficit, sometimes when our appetite's poor after a long run, we do our best, but maybe the next day when we're resting is when our body can actually talk to us a little bit more about those hunger cues. And if we're more hungry, regardless of if it's a rest day or not, we definitely want to listen to our body when it talks to us like that and make sure we're eating enough to recover.
So does that potentially mean that did not fuel correctly the day before if you're feeling that hungry
it's
the
possible.
day after?
It's possible you got into a little bit of a deficit, but it's also just possible that your body needed, and that's, it doesn't mean you did anything like epically wrong, but it's just good to always listen to it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good to know. All right. Our next question is from Aaron, or as Thomas likes to say, Aaron. Love the show. Had a question about magnesium. I've seen running influencers promoting magnesium, specifically triple magnesium from Pillar, claiming it can improve sleep and recovery. Is there science behind this? The Pillar product is fairly expensive. Are other alternative products all the same?
Can I jump on this one?
Sure.
Because I'm a believer in this one, and also a quasi-influencer, and I use the triple magnesium, and I really like it for before sleep. But the reason why it's a little more expensive than, say, your traditional triple magnesium is because they kind of coat it the same way that you get hydrogel. So it's going to bypass your system to get into your stomach and through your tract without irritating the stomach. The same thing is with magnesium there, and that's why they're able to give you a larger dose of magnesium and not give you the shits.
I was going to talk about that. Yeah. It's a nice little intro.
Can we leave that in there?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm me. Yeah, so I mean, taking a step back, there is a lot of questions about magnesium these days, and there's a lot of research about it, and it's something that I still don't think is 100% clear cut. And I think, we'll talk about why here in a minute, but really kind of starting at the bottom of magnesium. So we know that it's super important for runners to take adequate magnesium. One of the biggest things is it can help decrease muscle soreness, right? Which is huge. It is involved in muscle function and energy production and recovery and leg cramps. So you can imagine, people being like, oh shoot, do endurance athletes have enough magnesium? If they don't, if they're deficient, this could lead to delayed muscle recovery and more cramping and not as great energy production while we're out there, training. So it makes sense that magnesium has popped into the endurance space. So the next thing is, I always learned in undergrad that there aren't many Americans deficient in magnesium, that the typical American diet usually gives us enough magnesium. So that's kind of the information that I was taught, 15 years ago, but we also know a lot of research has changed over the years. So diving into it, it was kind of interesting to see. As runners, we typically lose like 10 to 20% more magnesium than a sedentary person. So our needs are technically higher, which again was not something that I learned in undergrad. So I do think we've learned a lot more about magnesium. So it's possible that a typical diet of a runner might not get adequate magnesium. But I think the complicated part about that is obviously magnesium is going to help us the most if we're not getting enough. It could potentially help us even if we are, but there's not a good way to check for magnesium deficiency. So just like we've talked about before, like if we go get an inside tracker or labs from our doctor and we get back a serum magnesium, that's not actually going to tell us if we're deficient or not. So the amount of magnesium that's in our blood is a very, very small percentage of what is actually stored in our body. So we mostly store magnesium in our bones and our soft tissues. So that number isn't going to tell us if we're deficient or not, right? So I think that's where it gets a little bit confusing, especially for me, is like, do I need a magnesium supplement? It's like, well, kind of like calcium. Our body very tightly controls our serum calcium level, but just because it's normal doesn't mean we're getting enough. So it's kind of hard for us to like immediately identify, right? Like with ferritin, like we just talked about, we can immediately be like, you need an iron supplement. Whereas it's a little harder to do that with magnesium. There are tests that you can look for a magnesium deficiency, but it's not something that's readily available. And it's not something a provider would do very often. So, looking at where do we get dietary magnesium, it's a lot of like our nuts, our seeds, our nut butters, our whole grains, greens, fruit, chocolate, vegetables, those types of things. So it's things that we're typically eating, enough of. But if we're not, right, we could potentially benefit from the added magnesium, or like Thomas has said, he might be getting enough, but he is seeing some of the benefits with recovery and better sleep from adding in, the magnesium. So I see a lot of people taking it for those reasons.
That's where, okay, so we have all these trackers now.
Mm-hmm.
And since I started taking the magnesium, I have noticed sleep and those types of things are going better for
HRV.
me. Yeah, HRV, all that.
Mm-hmm.
All those little metrics that we like to track. Since I started taking that, it seems like those are moving in a positive direction. The other thing that I like for it, and this is a side effect, because I use the pillar that you mix into the water. So I'm getting a nice, like sometimes I'm always like, I should probably have a little drink of water before I go to bed or whatever. And I just skip it and, go and brush my teeth and go to bed. But when I have the magnesium, I know that I'm getting an extra, 10 to 12 ounces of water right before bed, which I also think is beneficial. So for me, it's been positive. but I don't have, like you said, 30 years of research on it or anything like that. But I think I think it helps.
Yeah.
But I'm also getting magnesium in my Element and some of my other, products. So I'm probably all magged out.
So that's actually a good point. And like you said at the very beginning, we know that 500 milligrams of magnesium or more can cause diarrhea for a lot of people. Like when someone is super constipated in the hospital, you give them a high dose of magnesium to get them to go. So like
milk of magnesium, remember that?
Right. Yeah. So I do see some of my folks that have more sensitive GI tracts, like we have to just be careful. Just like you said, Thomas, a lot of our other supplements have a little magnesium in them. So all of a sudden, between our pillar that has, 310 milligrams of magnesium and then some of these other products, is it too much? So that's something I always keep in mind if somebody is having GI issues. If they're not, don't worry about it, right? You're fine. But some people do notice that it causes that. I have some pillar here I really want to try. I haven't yet, only because I take my iron at night, and our iron and magnesium compete for absorption. So I need to restructure my iron so that I can start seeing if I think it helps. But I haven't actually tried to dive into it.
Where are you going to put the iron in then?
Sometime during the day, probably like 2 hours after lunch or something like that, because I have coffee and dairy and stuff in the morning. So
nice.
I think I'll play with that a little bit more.
I've stopped taking as much iron because I've been taking the magnesium at night, and you had told me that they kind of work against each other.
Yeah, they compete, which is okay. We just got to restructure it a little bit. But I think their question too was the pillar has 3 different types of magnesium. So I spent some time looking into those 3, and it does increase the bioavailability having those different types. So they have magnesium glycinate, magnesium citrate, and magnesium amino acid chelate. So, that's probably why he said it's more expensive, because there are just more bioavailable types in there, and it is 3 different types all in one. So I think we're still kind of learning the benefits of all of them and, where they all kind of shake out. But this one certainly has it covered if you want to try, instead of taking a stab at, maybe magnesium glycinate will work for me. So
I also like the flavor.
I think it's what is it? It's like what's this one? Berry flavor?
There's two. Well, I have the coconut pineapple one or whatever. Yeah. And then there's like a lime one, but I prefer the coconut.
Yeah. So like Thomas said, I think like depending on why you want to try something like magnesium, if you do have something that measures your sleep and your HRV, or, just an assessment of, do I feel like I'm recovering better? Like I would pay attention to those types of things as you take it for maybe a month and just kind of see, do you think it's helping you? And then you can kind of evaluate, is it worth the cost or not, just depending on how you feel personally taking it. Because I do think there is probably something to how people respond to it based on how much magnesium they're getting in their daily diet, which again is not something we can test super readily. So maybe it is just a little trial and error to see if you feel like it benefits you.
All right. Very good. Our next question here is from Elizabeth. She said, I am 8 months pregnant and I am daydreaming about getting back into training post-baby. I'm allergic to dairy and I'm wondering how to boost calcium intake through other food sources to support breastfeeding and bone health. Would you recommend a calcium supplement? Hoping to do a late spring half and want to prevent bone injuries. Thanks. Love the podcast.
Okay, first I want to thank Elizabeth for knowing that she was pregnant. I was watching a show with Megan yesterday, and they had this couple that was at Burning Man who didn't know they were pregnant and had a baby at Burning Man. Now they have a GoFundMe to help them pay for the baby, but they had no idea that she was pregnant.
Yeah. So
wait,
Elizabeth,
is this like a Netflix show? Or?
No, this was just on the news.
This was on news. It was on Entertainment Tonight or Access, one of those news shows. But yeah, it was real life. Yeah.
I'm still so blown away.
Yeah.
What they say?
Look, if you can go 9 months not knowing you have a baby.
The guy, they didn't interview mom, but dad was on the show and he was very emotional.
Tears.
He had no idea. Now they have this wonderful baby.
I'm telling you what, if I don't know that I'm having a baby and you give me a baby, I'm upset.
Wow. I just, being pregnant twice, I literally cannot imagine not knowing. I've seen those things on, Lifetime. And
things there's a lot of signs that are hard to miss.
Yeah. I still remember, maybe it was because it was my second, I was laying up sideways on the couch and Sloan just started doing cartwheels in my stomach. Now knowing her, it makes sense. She doesn't stop moving. Arms were flying. I literally felt like alien was going to crawl straight out of my belly button. And it was so, I was like, could you just stop moving? It was like the strangest feeling. I was just, I don't understand how, there wouldn't be
she said
a little bit of a sign.
She said that she just got an immense pain all of a sudden, and then the baby was there.
Wow.
I feel like we might have a follow-up story to talk through the next time, so we'll see what happens.
But again,
Okay.
Elizabeth, thanks for knowing that you're
Stay
8 months
tuned.
pregnant.
Yeah.
It really helps diagnose this question, because otherwise, we could go in different directions.
Yeah. So she's ready to get back to training. I don't blame her for that. But I think it's good that she's aware that she needs to make sure she's getting adequate calcium, because when we're breastfeeding, our hormones are pretty low in order to continue to produce milk. So what that means is we don't have quite as much estrogen in our body, which is not great for bone health. So it really is a time that we need to be very careful that we're getting adequate calcium and adequate vitamin D, and that our serum vitamin D levels are where they need to be, because that'll really help, support that bone health, because breastfeeding is a finite time. So it's not like our bones are going to fall apart in that time, right? But we just want to be extra careful because we know how important they are for taking care of our child and then also continuing to run and do what we love. So soy products like tofu and tempeh and edamame are high in calcium. So she could add some things like that. And then also any type of fortified non-dairy, right? So like our soy milks, the pea protein milks that are popular now, even like oat milk, things like that. Just check and make sure it's fortified with calcium and vitamin D, and that can be like an equal swap. Same thing with like non-dairy yogurts.
What about just taking a pill?
You can. Yeah, I always try to get people to get it through food more. It's just a little bit more bioavailable and more effective.
But like it's an additive to the oat milk. It's an additive to these other.
It is.
Nut milk, so like
you're right.
Why not just
what's different?
You just crush it up and spin it in water.
Yeah. Sometimes they are a different type that are added to it that's more bioavailable. But you're right. You're absolutely correct in that statement. One of the best ones that I was taught in undergrad, which makes a lot of people cringe, but like if you eat canned sardines or salmon that have the bones and you squish them up, like that's an awesome source of calcium. I know I've lost you both. I won't do it either, but maybe Elizabeth will.
I forget what it was.
Did you say the bones?
They're really soft. Like they're not.
So people
like
eat
a bone.
People eat the sardines whole.
That's not okay.
With the bone.
I tried to do it because they were like it's good in omegas and all that
really
stuff. They're like it's actually a superfood.
Yeah.
And I tried to get one down. It's hard.
So I was in on the Wild Planet sardines because they cut the head and the tail off, and they're real big. They're not like those little slimy, creepy ones. I think they take the skin off too.
I prefer the little guys.
They do. So there's no head, no tail, no skin. But even still, I would open them and take the vertebrae or whatever. I guess there's not a vertebrae in a fish, is there? I don't know. Anyways, take the bones out of the center because I was like, I can't do this. But if she could do it, that would be a good idea.
I mean, and then also the little squirmy ones, you just put them on a salad and hide them in there.
Okay.
I can't do the squirmy ones. It just looked like tuna by the time I massacred this sardine and took the bones out of it. It just kind of looked like tuna on the top of like avocado toast. But
we really went off the rails on this one. Did we answer Elizabeth's question for the most part?
I think so. So I think, try to get it through diet first. But if you're not, then that would be the time to add in a supplement and be conscious. The only thing I would tell her is see if her OB will draw her vitamin D if they haven't. Because if our serum vitamin D is low, no matter how much calcium we eat, our body is not going to absorb as much as we're taking in. So making sure that vitamin D is where it needs to be and supplementing to get it there can also be really important for bone health, for overall, but also post baby.
Yeah, and enjoy Burning Man.
No, she knows she's having a baby.
Yeah, wrong one. All right, our next question is an audio submission from Grace.
Grace, let's hit it.
Hi, my name's Grace. I'm currently training for my first ever marathon, and it's going to be the Akron Marathon this fall. I had a couple questions regarding the marathon. I just wanted to know, what are your best tips and tricks for a first-time marathon runner? And I just recently got a blood panel done to see where my iron and ferritin levels were at. My ferritin is at a 9. And I was just wondering, what are things that I can do to improve that? For reference, I am a 5'1", 110-pound female who has struggled with some disordered eating in the past and some bone breakage issues. And so I was just wondering, what is the best timing for me to take that iron and my calcium supplement?
So I'm pretty excited, Grace. I'm running the half at Akron, and I might have coerced Kim Conley to come run the half as well. So both she and
Get
I
out
are
of
running
here.
the half. Yeah, she's coming in for it. Akron's such a
She's
fun
gonna
race.
beat you
Yeah.
though.
Oh, she's gonna crush me. She's gonna crush everybody. I'm like hoping she
I
gets
know,
the
that's
course
what I'm
record.
saying. Like, why are you gonna invite somebody who's gonna knock you down a spot?
Because then I'm not worried about my own performance. I'm like, oh, Kim's here.
Right.
She can just
Yeah.
take the cake. I could just go have
That's
fun.
what I do with Megan. I'm like, I still win because the house comes home with the trophy.
Right? I brought someone who's going to perform great, so I don't have to be in the limelight.
There
It'll
you
be
go.
perfect. It's like exactly what I want. Yeah. So I will
get
see
it.
you there, Grace. Except she's doing the full. It's pretty hilly. So even the half is hilly, and then I've heard the second half is.
Well, let's get her
more.
calcium and her ferritin up.
Yeah, that ferritin is crummy. I know she knows that already, but we'll start there and then we'll give her our tips for a first-time marathoner. But the first thing is she did mention she had a history of disordered eating. And if we aren't eating adequate energy, so if our energy availability is low, it's really hard to improve ferritin. So bottom line, right, just really making sure that she's eating adequately for her training. And given that this is her first marathon, it's possible that she's just not aware of how much more nutrition she needs related to running. So, just really kind of assessing that first and foremost. And then secondly, that is pretty low. So we're probably going to need a pretty hefty dose of iron to increase it. And again, it's going to respond faster if we're eating enough on a daily basis. So I would recommend getting a supplement and taking it like an hour before, 2 hours after eating, just to kind of optimize absorption. Like we've talked about before, no coffee or tea with it, no calcium or magnesium or zinc supplements with it, no foods high in those types of things with that supplement. And that should help absorb it a little faster. The guidelines as far as like how much iron to take are still kind of all over the place, but I do see most people improve the fastest if they're taking like 80 to 100 milligrams of iron most days. I know there's research to support taking it every other day, but I really do see people improve faster taking a higher dose daily. So if you want to do every other day, you'll probably just need to almost double your dose just to make sure you're getting, enough in. But again, it's very individualized. Some people respond to some things, some people don't. So that's why I always recommend rechecking it every 3 months as you're this low and supplementing so that we can see how you're responding, so we can adjust the supplement as needed or look into those other factors like energy availability, or like we were talking about at the top of the show, is there something going on with your GI tract that you're not absorbing the iron that we need to address? So, we always want to keep eyes on it because there could be reasons that a supplement alone won't fix it. So, we always just want to keep tabs on it throughout and really just make sure we have trusted medical professional involved to kind of help guide us and make some of those choices and decisions with it. But hopefully, if she can get some iron in for 2 weeks ahead of time, it can take months to improve ferritin. But most people start to be like, oh, I think I feel better just 2 weeks in. So, hopefully she can get on something and feel a little better by Akron.
I mean, the bone thing is the thing that scares me, and that's the calcium that you're talking about. But it's also like general nutrition, right?
For when she said she had a history of a bone injury, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was likely related to her history of disordered eating, right? Our bone density takes a hit when we're not consuming adequate calories, right? Because our body preserves that energy to keep up with certain body functions that are non-negotiable, like our heart beating and our liver functioning and our lungs breathing. So it'll kind of shut down fertility and pull from bone health and things like that, just to kind of quote unquote save energy when we're not giving our body enough. So it does increase our risk of those bone stress injuries.
And so for increasing calcium, I mean, I think we kind of talked about it when we were answering, whose question was that? Elizabeth?
Yeah. Elizabeth, yeah.
So just
Same
same
thing.
sort of things, try and get them through food first, and then if not, add a supplement.
Mm-hmm. And just make sure it's separate from, now we've talked about magnesium, calcium, and iron all in the same show, and those all need separated. So you can see how it gets a little strategic here.
All right. So now, first time marathoner tips. What do you got?
I'm going to say just go have a freaking blast and high five everyone and
What if she's not like
feel
outgoing that way?
often and early. Well, then just smile and take in the crowds and
Absorb
enjoy.
the love.
Yeah, and just enjoy being out there. Like, you only get to do your first marathon once, so just have a good time.
I mean, that basically my advice would be that would be exactly it. Like this is about finishing in the first one, and if you enjoy the distance, you're likely to then maybe set new goals that you want to achieve. But the first one really should be like, hey, do I like this distance? Do I like the process? Do I like how it starts, how it finishes, the feeling I get from accomplishment of finishing? Those are all things that you can measure as success in your first marathon, rather than being worried about what your time is or what your pace is or, anything like that.
Absolutely. Go in with an open mind. Meg stole one of mine, fuel early and often. I think that's one thing that most first-time marathoners don't nail. We wait to fuel till we feel like we need it, and by that point, our glycogen stores are toast, and then we just can't hold the pace that we thought we'd be able to. Plus, I guess I should backtrack, right? We need adequate carb intake to be able to sustain the pace that we've trained to be able to hold, and when those carbs run out, we have to slow down because we're using fat for fuel, and that's a slower fuel source. And also when that happens, it's not just the pace, because we just said, like, go finish it. Don't worry about your pace as much. But mentally, you feel horrible when you don't have carbs around. Like our brain gets very negative. This isn't fun anymore. I want to quit. So even fueling very frequently throughout, regardless of your pace, you're mentally going to stay more engaged and more happy and enjoy the experience more. I remember my first marathon, I took one gel and I literally hated it. I was like, I'm never doing this again. I crossed the finish line and I was like, why do people do this? And here we are. So, I think just really making sure if she's not aware of carb loading, like check out the resources on my website, make sure you carb load ahead of time, and then really just stay on top of your fuel during. And I think you'll have just such a better experience out there.
Yeah. And also if you want to be on TV, sprint out in the front with the fast people for as long as you can.
I don't think Akron's televised, is it?
No, I don't think Akron's televised. Yeah.
All right, then skip that part. You don't have to do that part. Just, yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
All right. Well, Grace, have a good time at Akron. Make sure you say hi to other Megan and Kim while you're there.
Mm-hmm.
You'll meet an Olympian.
Yeah.
Get your picture with an Olympian and an Olympic quality nutritionist.
There we go. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You've given nutrition advice to Olympians, haven't you?
Yeah.
There we go.
Count it.
That's it. You could get the ring tattoo.
Don't we all? I'm not so sure about that one.
Okay, that does it for us this week. Thank you all, as always, for listening. And if you have a question that we haven't answered, you can send us an email at fuelforthesoulpodcast@gmail.com.
How do you do the voice email?
You can record a voice memo on your phone or however you like to record something and send it to us, and we will play it here on the show. Or you can just send us a regular email, whatever is your preference. We prefer the audio version, but we'll take whatever questions you got.
Yeah, Grace, you killed it today with your audio.
All right.
Oh, time for the peas and carrots.
Bye.
Bye.